Good afternoon, good evening. I would like to call the Monday, October 18, 2021 meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners to order and welcome everyone. At this time, I would like to bring Commissioner Jeanette Council for the invocation as well as the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Would you stand, please? Oh, well, it's broken. And join me in a moment of silence for those that we have lost, to include a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as a longtime principal and leader in the Cumberland County Schools, and we all know somebody. Okay, join me in a moment of silence. Heavenly Father, we come tonight to conduct the business of our county, keeping in mind the needs of all 335,000 citizens. It is a hard job, but with your help, we always try to make the best decisions possible. Keep us forever in the right path, and let us govern with a clean mind and a clear heart. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would like to introduce members of the Fayetteville Cumberland County Youth Council. Ms. Leah Davis, who is the Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council Vice Chair, and also Mr. James Toon.
Good evening. My name is Leah Davis, and I'm a senior at Cumberland Good evening. My name is Leah Davis, and I'm a senior at Cumberland International Early College High School. I'm also the vice chair of the Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council. I'm excited here today to report on the FCYC, Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council 2021-2022 year. The year has come off to a great start, as we have more than 50 students coming in for monthly meetings. These students include homeschool, our high schools, and public schools. We have completed our interest meeting, and we're excited to continue with the great group of students we have. Now I will pass it over to James.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is James Toon, and I'm a junior at Grace Creek High School. I'm here to tell you about our partnership with the Food Policy Council. As you may know, Cumberland County and Fort Bragg have established the first county military food policy council in the nation to address food insecurity and health food access. Throughout the community, engagement among Cumberland County and Fort Bragg residents. With this partnership, we will have one teen who served on the council and will be practicing in the Food Policy Council survey. This survey will help the council know what food and beverages we see in our local grocery stores. FCYC looks forward to working with the new council, and thank you for their continuous support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here tonight. We will be speaking with you later on. Thank you. County Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This brings us to our public comment period. This is an opportunity for citizens to engage with the commissioners and share any issues or concerns. This evening, we will ask each speaker, as they come forward, to give their name and their address. Each speaker will be limited to a maximum time of 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And thank you, Madam Manager. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we have 2 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Mr. Paul Williams.
Mr. Williams, former city councilman, welcome.
How you doing, Mr. Evans? It's a pleasure to be before you guys. I think I know most of you, except maybe Dr. Stewart. I guess y'all got collectively about 1,000 years of experience between y'all. So I won't try to tell you how to do your job, but I am here on a very important issue, and that is election integrity. As y'all may have heard from our local news reports and national news reports, the Arizona audit was a big flop. Well, I'm here to tell you it wasn't. It did exactly what it set out to do, and that was just to determine what went on in the election. And what they didn't report in local and national news is there was a ton of they didn't do right. Very much from the very beginning, and refusal to even assist in the audit. And as you know, any audit to be successful, you need the cooperation of people involved. Well, we're seeing that in North Carolina now. We've got a North Carolina Election Integrity Board or a group trying to do an audit of a machine, a voting machine we have here in North Carolina. So they, North Carolina representative put name of 100 counties in a hat, and they drew a county to be selected, and it happened to be Durham County. Well, guess what? Durham County Board of Elections has to say about it. The same thing the Arizona Board. Hell no, don't set foot in our county. You ain't doing it here. I don't know about y'all, but just for Cumberland County, I know that it's probably ran as best as it could be run. But whenever you don't require a voter ID, Mr. Keith, you know in your business, sometimes you got to ask for ID if you want things to be up and legit. And when we're talking about voter ID, we're talking about integrity of an election. Now, I understand why a 3 board, 2 out of 3 voted it down as unconstitutional. How is it unconstitutional in this state but not in other states? How is it racist? Aren't you really the racist by saying it's racist? That asking for an ID of a black person is racist? How is that racist? In fact, well, I don't want to go too deep into that other than asking for ID is people who want a legitimate election, an election with integrity. Those who don't care, you don't care about election integrity. And all y'all got elected, so I can find you're hard-pressed to support any type of investigation into integrity. I know it's not y'all's job, but what is y'all's job is to come together as a board and send a message to the governing bodies that do have a say, such as North Carolina Board of Elections, that we need to be looked at. We okay with it. We feel that we run a pretty good operation here. We'd like to set the standard for the rest of the state. You're invited to come into our elections. You as a collective group, I know y'all can do that. So basically that's what I'm here to do, is to ask for you to get the integrity back into elections. I don't want to vote no more. I don't want to be in politics no more. And even coming up here, I feel it's really a waste of time. But what's the other choice? Pitchforks? Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion, sir.
Our second speaker this evening is Mr. Chalico Hurst.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening, sir. I don't know what to say after following that. I have my PowerPoints here. I'm going to go ahead and run through my PowerPoints, then I'll review that just a little bit if you don't mind. Once again, my name is Chalico Hurst, 1385 Wayside Drive. My main PowerPoints was to address the issue of the homelessness in Cumberland County. As you know, we've had in North Carolina, I think, for just one fiscal year, they have the program. They wrote it over into one umbrella, the RAP program. And myself and my organization that I'm affiliated with, Fairville PAC, we've been assisting in accenting the plight of the homeless here in Cumberland County. And some of those citizens have been on in line since June and July and hadn't received funds. Luckily, by bringing attention to it, some of these citizens have started rolling out and receiving these funds, which is ridiculous. These funds have been sitting in the state and in this city for this whole fiscal year. The second thing I want to address is the previous citizen just spoke about racism. I don't know how familiar you are. I know, Mr. Adams, you're familiar with what I'm getting ready to say. We live in a state where technically it's still against the law for a black man over the age of 18 just to stare at a Caucasian woman. Let that sink in. We have a slave market house. That's what it is right downtown, still here. The state above us, the state of Virginia, has been tearing down the remnants of slavery this whole fiscal year, whether it be monuments or renaming streets. But we at a step pass, more or less, as far as the decision on the slave market house and also the renaming of Bragg. We have too many veterans in this city, former veterans and present people that are currently enlisted for them to be standing on the wayside, on the side of this issue. And please, can we move more quickly on the issue of the homelessness in Cumberland County and the city of Fayetteville? And please, we just had an election in Hope Mills, and because of they rolled back the souls to the polls and they took away a Saturday for citizens in Hope Mills to come vote, it was a lackluster turnout. Do we really want that in November and February? Is that what we're seeking to do, to bring down those people who turn out to vote? So please consider those 3 points for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your opinion, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to item number 1 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. And I would like to ask the board to agree to defer items 3C and 3D. Those are proposed planning text amendments, but I'm asking this evening if we can defer that to your November 15, 2021 meeting.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Was E a text amendment too?
No, sir.
That's one of the hearings?
Yes, sir.
E, F,
Just
and D?
C and D.
Okay.
Is there a motion? Yes, sir, thank
I
you.
move to,
Is there a second?
well, I second it.
All in favor?
And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is your consent agenda.
Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. This brings us to item number 3, which are 2 public hearings. The first one, 3A, is a public hearing to consider approval for the purposes of meeting the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code of up to $29 million in educational facilities revenue refunding bonds to be issued by the Public Finance Authority for the benefit of Methodist College University. With us this evening from Methodist University, we have Sheila Kinsey, who's the Chief of Staff and also the Vice President for Planning and Administration. And I'll ask her to come forward to give you a brief overview of the project. Ms. Kinsey?
Good evening, everyone. How are you tonight?
Good evening.
As Ms. Cannon said, I'm here tonight to request that the Commission approve this issuance of a $29 million tax-exempt bond for the university. It refinances 2 bonds that we have now, a 2012 and a 2014. It'll be issued by the Public Finance Authority, which is a Wisconsin governmental entity, but the federal law requires that the local governing body approve, that for the jurisdiction, approve the issuance of such a bond. So the bonds that we're refinancing finance various facilities on campus, some dormitories, various classroom building additions or construction, and just some general improvements on campus. These bonds will not be an obligation of Cumberland County. They are totally an obligation of the university to repay to the Public Finance Authority, which will repay the bondholders. They will not in any way impact the credit rating of the county and are not responsible, the county's not responsible in any way for these bonds. It merely requires approval of the local jurisdiction. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions if you have any.
Are there any questions or comments for Ms. Kinsley? If not, let's open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers this
There are
evening.
no speakers. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
No, I would just move
Commissioner
to,
Adams.
Mr. Chairman, before you close the public hearing or make a motion, let me point out that I am to have shown the clerk the publisher's affidavit. We didn't receive that until Friday, but I have provided that to the clerk at the meeting, and it will be made part of the minutes and for your resolution.
Thank you.
The notice of this public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Commissioner Adams.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the refinance of the $29 million in educational facility revenue refunding bonds to be issued by the Public Finance Authority for the benefit of Methodist College.
And we will do that after the closing of the public hearing.
Oh, I thought you closed.
The public hearing is closed. Now, would you restate that motion, please?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, I thought we had closed it, my problem.
That's
I would
okay.
move to approve for the purpose of meeting the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code of up to $29 million in educational facilities revenue refunding bonds to be issued by the Public Finance Authority for the benefit of Methodist College Incorporated.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Unanimous.
University.
Thank you so much.
Did I say
ma'am.
college?
Thank you very
Oh,
much. We
university.
appreciate it.
I've been here too long.
Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. The public hearing next is item 3B. It's a public hearing on the Bethany Area Land Use Plan. And this evening, Mr. Rawls Howard is not with us. Our Assistant Planning Director, Mr. David Moon, will be presenting the planning cases, but Mr. Trey Smith will be providing an update on the Bethany Area Land Use Plan.
Mr. Smith, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The Bethany Area Land Use Plan. The Bethany area shown here on this map is the last without an adopted detailed land use plan in the county. There's 12 other plans. I believe this will be our 13th. This plan area, if it's not covered by a plan, it will be governed by the 2030 plan that was adopted in late, I think it was 2008, which that would be the, which calls for this whole area to be rural, which would allow for up to 20,000 square feet if soils and everything else meet and compatibility with the surrounding area. The area comprises approximately 11,204 acres. The population is approximately 1,564, and the area is extremely rural in nature. This planning process, as y'all are well aware, was interrupted by the pandemic. In January 28, 2020, we had a kickoff meeting and 65 people were in attendance. The pandemic hit and planning efforts stopped. They resumed back in October 2020 with an update to the county website, allowing for public input for a visioning statement, SWOT analysis, and any other input that residents were willing to give. We had 3 virtual meetings, one in January and 2 in February. Then on February 25th, a draft plan was posted online. Property owners were sent mailed notification by postcards, and hard copies were placed at the Bethany Fire Department for those unable to be online to be able to contact and comment on the plan. On June 29th, it went to the Planning Board in April. Planning Board recommended that we go have an additional public meeting. So on June 29th, 2021, we had a drop-in session at Center Baptist Church. Property owners were sent notifications for that as well. And we obtained input at that time and included that in the final draft that you're seeing now of the plan. The Bethany Land Use Plan has many components, a vision statement, SWOT analysis, surveys, reviews of existing conditions. However, tonight I'm going to briefly focus on the following areas, which is public input, which I just did, future land use map, and classifications and recommendations. The future land use map that you see here, the plan calls for the vast majority of the area in green to be classified as rural. Let's see if this is a highlight. This area all the way from here down to here, the coloring's a little bit off on the slideshow. Everything you see in green is classified as the rural classification. The little
Two greens up there. Which green?
Yeah, well, the darker shade of green is classified as open space, which consists of the 100-year flood. And that's the 100-year flood, and we call the open space for that because that's not desired to be developed in the 100-year flood. Everything else you see, in the lighter shade of green is classified as rural. The little area you see down in here is classified as rural density residential. The shade of orange color here, darker shade of yellow, is considered suburban density residential. That's primarily of existing 20,000 square foot lots and houses that already exist. And there's a little area here around the interchange that calls for commercial type development. Get through here. As you've seen in the last couple of plans, we've included a crosswalk table, which helps to determine consistency with the adopted plan. You make note that this plan states that if you look here, you see a blue area on R40 and R30. So what this plan calls for is, in those areas, a rezoning may be appropriate, but only when compatible with the surrounding area, and conditional zoning should be utilized. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail as to what the rural classification is. It's the associated zoning districts with the rural classification are A1, A1A, R40, R40A. They may be appropriate, R40 and R40A may be appropriate in this area, but only when compatible with surrounding area and when a conservation development or some other form of higher development standards is utilized. Conditional zoning should be required. I'd like to note additionally that the classification section of the plan goes into policies for each classification. And the second policy you'll see under rural classifications notes as well that zero lot line developments are discouraged, and that when a conditional zoning is brought in front of a board, that that zero lot lines should be discouraged and setbacks appropriate to the character of the area should be considered, if not additional measures to protect the rural character of the area when a conditional zoning is done. I'm sorry, I'm slipping back between these. Just to give you reference for what the area surrounding this plan area, the other plans call for. If you look up here to the north, this is the northeast plan that calls for farmland. This area here is the Wade land use plan. It calls for 1 acre lots. The plan area immediately to the west is the Eastover area plan, recently adopted, and the Stedman area plan to the south, recently adopted. Both of those call for rural density residential, which the Eastover one has a range of associated uses in rural density from 20,000 square foot minimum lot sizes all the way up to A1 agricultural 2 acre lot sizes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
What's an A1A?
A1A is a zoning classification that the county has that the maximum amount of property that can be rezoned that classification is 10 acres. It allows manufactured housing. That's the difference. The A, it limits the zoning of a property to 10 acres, a zoning to 10 acres in size, and allows, the A allows certain types of manufactured housing.
Okay, thank you.
The last component of the plan is the Bethany area recommendations. These are general recommendations. They're included in the plan to hopefully, if accomplished, improve the quality of life in the plan area. Just some highlights of this. In the agricultural section is encourage the development of new small farms, farmsteads, and homesteads. Natural environment, support the preservation and protection of the special flood hazard areas. Adopt county rural design standards. Under the community section, and support the efforts of the Bethany Historical Society. In past meetings and in every conversations we've had with the planning board and general public, the problem, not problem, but the discussion always revolves around whether or not this plan, you should allow R40. As I mentioned earlier in my presentation, R4, and I'd like to reiterate, this plan says you'd be consistent with a plan with R40 only if it's consistent with compatible with the surrounding area and a conditional zoning is utilized. Also, it would only be consistent with the plan if it was not a zero lot line subdivision, just for if that arises again. If you have any additional questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Smith? If not, we're going to open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
We have two speakers this evening, two speakers speaking in opposition. Our first speaker is Ms. Danielle Lipford.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Danielle Lipford. That's fine. Danielle Lipford, 7445 Boyce's Landing Road, Wade, North Carolina, 28395. I oppose further rezoning of the Bethany area from anything other than A1 and A1A zoning. As outlined in the Bethany area land use plan, residential rezoning is likely appropriate or may be appropriate for much of the Bethany area. Future development outside of agriculture zoning would negatively impact the Bethany community. The Bethany area is rural, comprised of more than 90% agriculture and conservation zoning. The intent of agriculture zoning is to protect farmland and farming activities, as well as to prevent urban agriculture land use conflicts. As livestock growers within the Bethany community, the decision to further rezone this area from agriculture to residential will affect my family and my farm. My family moved to the Bethany area after the purchase of our farm. Our farm is under contract with Butterball. Butterball supplies us with the animals in good faith. We supply a safe facility and day-to-day care of those animals. Currently, our farm is protected as it lies in an area conducive to the farm and its purpose. It is surrounded by a community that appreciates and accepts our way of life and our use of the land. In the event of residential rezoning, we would not be protected from urban agriculture land use conflicts. This would affect our farm and our livelihood. Growers and farmers are forced to exercise great caution in all decisions as they relate to their farm in efforts to avoid conflicts. Many people are very far removed from what happens on a farm, to include late night and early morning trucking of feed for animals, animal deliveries and loadouts. Routine odor with a large farm is also an area of concern regarding neighbors new to a farm. Farmers must choose sites selectively when raising animals. Farmers must be educators and good neighbors and be prepared to defend what they do every day and why they do it. As a young family and young farmers, it was important to us, my family, to do all these things the right way and make the best decision for our future. We exercised great caution in purchasing this site and agreeing to raise animals on it. Residential landowners do not share the same purpose and land use as agriculture landowners. This is where conflicts occur. My community is an agriculture community that protects me, my family, and my neighbors. The community is not a residential community. Bethany zoning should remain true to the current community who calls this area home today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our second speaker in opposition is Mr. Stephen Bullard.
Welcome, Mr. Bullard.
Good evening. How y'all doing? My name's Stephen Bullard. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Stephen Bullard, and I live at 6132 Adidas Street, Wade, North Carolina. First, we appreciate the employees who went out and gathered all the information and understands the needs and wants by the impacted community. With that being said, there are discrepancies between the county's own research and the proposal with this plan they presented. The wants and needs of the majority of the people that either live in the area or own property in the area are being disregarded. This land use plan will allow A1 2-acre lots to change to R40, which is less than an acre. Please remember the fact R40 is less than an acre. This is in direct contradiction to what the people have asked for, and more importantly, what matches the actual area. In the plan, the Bethany area vision states that new growth should be well managed and harmonious with the surrounding area. I agree with that. The plan states on page 8 that future development builds upon the existing foundation. Page 10 will tell you that most of the area, 83 is owned A1 and 10% is conservation, so that means that 93% of the area is already 2 acres or larger. This information is directly from the county, which they obtained through research and surveys. So with that being said, where does R40 that's less than an acre blend in? It does not. Not when 93% of it's over 2 acres. Page 15, question 6, 78% of the people said it's growing too quickly. Question 8, 60% of the survey wants 2-acre lots or larger. 15% wants 1-acre lots. Only 4% wants an R40 lot. So with just that information alone, why is that lot size even offered in this plan? That's not what the people want. Mr. Howard and Mr. Smith took the time to gather the information, then they disregarded the results and put together a land use plan to appease the Fayetteville Builders Association, as has been stated in the board meeting and said in several other times, by including R40 in the plan. Also, the R40 conservation is a terrible plan. It sounds good, but it will allow for houses to be put on half-acre lots, and that's not even close to matching the area. If y'all have any questions, please ask later, and I'll explain how that happens. These are all facts that's presented to you today that the county brought to us. The commissioners are elected by the people of Cumberland County and work for the people of Cumberland County. When dealing with this land use plan, that's only a small section of Cumberland County, then the commissioners, I hope, are working for the people in this area or their own property in this area, and not by anyone that will not be affected by your decision tonight. With that being said, the people, as clearly stated loudly, please listen to the people and take the R40 out.
Thank you so much, sir.
Y'all have a good night.
You do the same.
I have a question for Trey.
Madam Manager, there are no more speakers,
There are no
correct?
more speakers.
Okay, the floor is now open for, first of all, let me close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. Now, we have any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Keith.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Trey, I think there's no doubt from anybody's mind that Bethany is a rural area. Most people moved out that way because they wanted a rural environment. How many land use plans have we done?
This will be the 13th.
13th. How many of them have restricted themselves totally to A1 or without allowing any growth?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay.
None.
As a board tonight, this is just the land use plan. This is the guidance that future boards will leave on future zoning matters. So anything that comes up in the future will still have to be voted on if it's A1 right now. You know, the challenge that all of us have up here is we understand that many people want it to remain rural, but when that person who owns that farm wants to sell his farm or her farm, then they're restricted in totally by the zoning that comes out of there. And I understand that. It's difficult. If nobody ever wanted to sell their farms, this would never be an issue, or their plots of land. I'm going to leave it open for some other people, and I have some thoughts on this a little bit later.
Thank you, Commissioner Keith. Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, I'll start again then.
Commissioner Keith.
All right. I'd like the board to consider a couple things. And Mr. Bullard, where are you at, Mr. Bullard? Yep, there you go. You're exactly right. R40 is a little bit shaky and not real happy with the way R40 goes. It is rural in the way things go with an R40. Someone can ask for a zero lot line. Someone can, if the property is not all buildable, condense their lots down. Understand that. That is not in character with what we're looking at. Zero lot lines do not require setbacks. That is not in the, in what I would feel like is the rural character of this area. So, again, we're just talking about a land use plan. I believe that I would like for the board to consider R40 with some very strict considerations. And those strict considerations are, we will not consider any development with zero lot lines. We will not consider any development without approved R40 setbacks, which now are 50 feet to the front, 50 feet to the back, and 15 on each side. And also that we restrict that only one house per acre can be built on any development, which will take away the ability for the developer to consolidate lots into a more dense area. So these are things I'd like the board to consider, maintaining the approval of the R40 in the area, but with these conditions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Keith.
Keith.
May I make a note?
Sure.
In the policy section of the classifications, I'm going to read verbatim. It pretty much reflects what you just stated. It says, "The utilization of zero lot line / variable lot developments is not desirable in this classification unless rural design standards such as buffers, berms, additional setbacks, etc. are applied. This can be accomplished through the use of conditional zoning." So if someone were to come in here, the way I would interpret this plan is if someone were to come in here with a request to R40, and the site, which they have to submit a site plan or a plat, subdivision plat, and that plat was a zero lot line subdivision, it would therefore be not in compliance with this plan.
Right. I just wanted you used the word discouraged, I think. Was that the word you used?
Not desirable.
Not desirable.
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to make it not acceptable.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Adams.
The only problem, Mr. Keith, I'm not, yours is trying, life changes. And to bind the next boards on that, I think the discourages, and the planning board just needs to know what this board's desire is. But I think once you put that in there, it just, as future goes on, somebody has to come back and read, we got a whole plan that has to do that. I think it's strongly discouraged, I think strongly, put strongly discouraged in there, as opposed to unacceptable. Because when you say unacceptable, that means they just can't do it. And I think we all know that at some point, Grace Creek, Bethany, Wade, it's going to grow because that's the last areas of this county. I think that it needs to be, I'm all about controlled growth and make sure it's in line with whatever is out there. And I think that as we talk about it, considering there's nothing out there except for way down at the bottom that's R40, it's going to be hard to get any R40 if this board follows this plan. And we'll find that out because as we go to some of these zoning cases, something is not necessarily in compliance with the plan. But I think we do strongly discourage and not unacceptable because I think down the road, we just need to be able to look at that.
Would you, are you in agreement with the one house per acre and also the setbacks?
Yeah, I think that's, I don't have any problem with that part.
One residence per acre, and then utilizing the R40 setbacks would be appropriate. Not,
and that's in the
obviously
plan.
with the wording of zero lot lines stronger than as written.
I think it's important too that this is just the plan. Future boards can vote against the plan.
And they do.
I know, but this is just the accepted plan for that area. I know it's not perfect for everybody. I know it's not, and I understand that, but we're trying to make as harmonious as we can to move forward and take into consideration everybody's abilities out there.
So
Thank you.
strong, I think strongly, we can put strongly in there.
I'll accept Mr. Adams strongly.
Strongly. Yeah, strongly.
Okay.
Mr. Keith, can we clarify something for record? You're saying one house per acre. R40 is 3,560 feet smaller than an
I know.
acre. So are you saying you're eliminating R40 because that's what the plan calls for?
As Mr. Bullard started out there, it's less than 1 acre. So what I was looking at, I know it's only 3,556 square feet less than an acre, but bringing in not to R40 standard, but to 1 house per acre. That's what I'm hoping.
So that's a significant change in this plan because that would eliminate R40 zoning.
What would you call it then?
We don't have a 1 house per acre.
Yes, R40 is the closest thing we have to 1 acre
Okay.
lots. That's why it's
All right.
referenced so
Okay,
frequently.
all right, we're talking about, it's 96% of R40, of 1 house per acre.
Well, but we just want, for the record, 'cause we didn't- yes, sir.
I want to do it right so nobody comes back later and tries to go back.
Well, yeah, well, you know, if you don't mind me interjecting here, I think to do it right is to send it back to the planning committee and have them to rewrite this, because all this discussion of the various changes that we want to see done is not cutting the mustard here. It just doesn't make sense for us to sit here and change what's presented to us without going back to the planning board and let them do it.
We just changed one word.
Well, it did sound that way.
Yeah, it's just one word, strong one.
I think Commissioner Keefe has conceded to R40, is that correct? All right, so I think, yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I think by Mr. Keefe doing that, you're okay with having it strongly discouraged instead of undesirable. I think that would be, I don't think that's a significant change from what the planning board has done, sir.
Okay, so now, any more questions or comments? Now, I entertain a motion. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that the, not sure how to word this exactly, but make a motion, we move with R40 and the planning model with the stipulations as we called for 0 lot lines and acreage and setbacks.
And strongly discouraged.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Keefe, Commissioner Adams, and Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to our uncontested rezoning cases. We'll move to item 3E. That's case zoning 21007. Mr. Moon.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair and Commission. David Moon, Deputy Director of Planning and Inspections.
Welcome.
Case 2107 is a request to rezone half-acre piece of property from R10 to commercial planned district. The site is located on the west side of the county, abutting the town of Hope Mills. Location of the site appears on this map. The applicant is David Ferruzzi with the agent of Yarborough, Winters, and Neville. The intent is to develop the site as commercial. You'll see that within the surrounding area of the property, it's primarily commercial to the east and west. To the west of the site is a putt-putt entertainment facility. Next to that is the Millstone Retail Center with a movie theater at that location. And to the north is primarily single-family residential. There's some blocks of single-family residential to the east, but you'll notice that all of these wooded vacant lots are owned by a company called Landstone LLC, which is also the same owner as that commercial shopping plaza. There are water lines in front of the property and sewer lines within close proximity to the site as well. The surrounding area of the proposed site is designated a future land use designation of heavy commercial. The request is consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan. Both the Joint Planning Board and staff recommend approval and find it consistent with the land use plan. The applicant is available here this evening should you have any questions for the applicant. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, are there any, well, first of all, let's open the public hearing. Are there any speakers, Madam
There
Clerk?
are no speakers.
Okay, let's close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Keith?
Real quick, can you come up and flash back? What, all those dotted lines that were out there, are those the town limits?
Yes, the green dash line is the town limits of Hope Mills. Doesn't show to the north, but this parcel and areas to the north of it are in an enclave surrounded by the town of Hope Mills.
Wow, what a checkerboard that is. Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions
I
or
just got a
comments?
couple of questions.
Commissioner Adams?
You said water and sewer is close proximity. Does this not have water and sewer?
The water line is in front of the property,
Mm-hmm.
right here, and sewer lines are within close proximity in terms of sewer being extended to the side.
But they don't have to extend it if we rezone. This is the whole problem I have with whole Camden Road and all of this, is I always have this problem with the water and the sewer, and we're gonna put a commercial right in the middle of it. Just doesn't make sense. Did the town of Hope Mills have any objection to it? Do
We have
know?
not received any comments from the town.
Were they notified?
Yes, they're part of the development review team.
Okay, are there any more questions or comments? If not, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make this. In the case of zoning 21-007, I move to approve the rezoning request from R10 residential to CP Plan Commercial District and find that the request is consistent with the Southwest Cumberland Land Use Plan, which calls for heavy commercial approval of the request is reasonable in the public interest. Because the CP planned commercial district would allow an atmosphere that supports the existing and future commercial activities while contemplating the surrounding residential area and would be compatible and in harmony with the surrounding land use activities and zoning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, Keefe, Commissioner Stewart. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans and Commissioner Adams.
Thank you very much, Madam
Yes.
Manager.
Yes, sir. That brings us to item 3F, zoning case 21-0008.
There we go. Case 21008 is a request to zone portions of a lot or lots approximately half an acre in size from CD Conservancy District to R15 Residential District. The site is located in the south central area of the county with an existing platted residential subdivision. And simple, these two platted lots were located on the north side within a conservation zoning district. It was zoned that because that half of the northern portion of the property fell within the FEMA 100-year floodplain line. The property thus has applied to FEMA to relocate that line to the north property line, and after that was approved by FEMA, the next step is to rezone the property on the north side to allow for development of the lots. The request is inconsistent with the current future land use designation of open space, but that, if approved by the Board of County Commission, will be administratively changed to the residential designation consistent with the surrounding area, which is low-density residential. The local, rather land The Joint Planning Board as well as staff recommend approval and find it consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan once the map is amended. That completes my presentation. The applicant property owner is present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, is there any speakers?
There
any
are
speakers?
no speakers.
Thank you so much. We'll close the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I have a question. I messed up. I just messed up. I thought that I read in, if you go back in there, that it was not in compliance with the growth plan on about the 8th or 7th or 8th page, that it was not in compliance with that. Did I
Correct.
read that wrong?
As
And
shown on
was-
this map, the
Well, in the open space it does, but if you look in.
northern half of the lot is within open space. It's in that designation because at one point, the 100-year flood line
Right.
crossed the northern half of the property at the time it was platted. The property owner could have a difficult time applying for a loan or selling the property without rezoning this property. They already went to the Federal Emergency Management Administration and had that 100-year flood line moved outside the lot.
I got that part, but it still wasn't consistent with the plan and the fact of the matter, we just went through a flood, and whoever sells or buys these lots, that's why it's open space, is gonna be in the middle of a flood, and they're gonna come to us and start asking why we rezoned something that was going. I know they moved the flood line. I know they went to FEMA and they did that. But I think that just because you move the line doesn't move what the space was. I mean, I think that was where we had a whole lot of, if I'm not mistaken, all across some of this space, and I think that's why some of that's wetlands and all of that, and they got me pulled up now. Let's see. I cannot find it. But anyway, it's all good. All right, but it's just.
Okay, Commissioner Adams, want to come back to you right quick?
If somebody else has
Yes, sir.
something, I'm
Thank
good.
you.
Yes.
I just want a clarification. Is this a separate lot, or is this just the backside of an existing? Have they split up a lot? Or is this a separate lot?
It's two lots.
Okay,
They are-
but two lots?
This is the plat, and there is a
I can't see that.
100-year floodplain that crosses the middle of those lots, and
You made that a
that
little
line
bit
has
bigger.
been relocated to the perimeter of the property.
Oh. Okay. Okay. So they are abutting existing lots, and they are an extension of the existing lots? Or are they separate lots?
No, these are two legal lots.
Okay.
For some reason, it was platted with the back half of the property
Yeah.
within the 100-year floodplain.
Okay.
So now the property owner has had trouble selling and developing those lots because on paper, they were within the 100-year floodplain.
Yeah,
That
I
line
probably
has
would, yeah.
been moved after engineering submitted applications to FEMA to move that line to the north.
Yeah, I may have felt differently if it was separate lots, but if it's an extension of the same lot, it seems reasonable to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I was just on page 424 where it says request is not consistent with the adopted land use plan. And that's what we were just talking about, these land use plans and putting them in conjunction and then not following them. And there's a reason it was in that 100-year floodplain. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're quite welcome. Need to close the public hearing. Need to close the public hearing. Are there, I did ask for questions or comments. Let's do a motion. Is there a motion for this?
Mr. Chair, I'll take it.
Thank you, sir.
In the case of zoning 21-008, I move to approve the rezoning from CD Conservation District, CUD Conditional Use District, to R15 Residential District and Conditional Use District, subject to the conditions and approval of case P10-9 and find. Approval is an amendment to the adopted current South Central Land Use Plan, and that the Board of Commissioners should not require any additional request or application for amendment to said map for this request. The applicant has petitioned to amend the existing flood maps to remove the flood boundaries from the affected lots. The existing land use plan designates as open space is based upon the existing flood hazard lines. The request is reasonable in the public interest because the requested district should allow development that would be compatible and in harmony with the surrounding land use, activities, and zoning.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, and Keefe. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans, Commissioners Adams, Booston, Stewart. The motion fails.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Madam Manager, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That moves us to our last public hearing, item 3G, zoning case 21-0009.
Mr. Chairman, let me point out on the one that you just heard, you did not approve it, but you did not deny it, so it would be necessary, I mean, the applicant has a right to have a decision made, so it'd be necessary for someone to make a motion to deny it.
Okay, so we need to go back to that and make the
Yes.
motion to deny. Okay, is there a motion to, let's go back to item F,
3F.
zone 21-0008.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, let me clarify something for the record, because my understanding of this is, Mr. Moon, was it reported that the flood, the old flood hazard line was incorrectly designated? Because the motion doesn't say that. It just says that based off the current existing flood hazard. Was that not incorrectly mapped?
I couldn't attest to whether it was
Okay.
incorrectly mapped, but what can happen is an engineer can submit a request to FEMA to have the line amended based on changes in flood patterns, and the development of the subdivision probably created stormwater facilities that may have changed some of the stormwater pattern.
Well, has the map been changed? Has the flood map?
Yes.
Okay.
The FEMA map has been changed. There's no 100-year floodplain on those lots.
Okay, so is there a motion to deny?
Mr. Chairman, in case zoning 21-0008, I move to deny the rezoning request from CD Conservation District, CUD Conditional Use District to R15 Residential / CUD Conditional Use District, and find that the request is not consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan, which calls for open space. Denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest because it was not in, it's not consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan that was presented to us.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Chairman Evans, Commissioners Adams, Booston, Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioners Lancaster, Council, and Keefe. The motion passes.
Thank you,
And now-
Mr. Attorney and Board.
We'll go to
Madam
item
Manager.
3G, the zoning case 21-0009.
Case 21-009 is a rezoning request for 10.3 acres of land from A1 Agricultural District to RR Rural Residential. The site is generally located on the east central area of the county. It's located on the north side of Santa Rosa Road. The request for RR Residential District would allow for a minimum residential lot size of half an acre, 20,000 square feet. The development to the north is Stony Creek. It has a typical minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. On the south side of Santa Rosa Road is the Baywood community. The lots along Santa Rosa Road in that community have a typical minimum size of 35,000 square feet. The property owner, the developer, is present. The agent is George Rose. The surrounding area is predominantly residential in character. The zoning to the east and west is A1, north RR, and to the south R10. Water and sewer lines are not located in front of the property along Santa Rosa Road, but they are within vicinity of the property. And the future land use designation is rural density residential within the Eastover land use plan. Both the staff and the Joint Planning Board found the request consistent with the Eastover land use plan. I'll address any questions that you may have.
Are there any speakers, Madam Clerk?
There are no speakers once the public hearing is open.
And I appreciate you for reminding me.
You're welcome, sir.
The public hearing is now open and there are no speakers, so we will close the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions by the board? Yes, Commissioner Booth.
Just to recap, you said there's not water and sewer on the property, but adjacent or nearby or something? I didn't hear the last part.
Correct. This map shows the location of the PWC water and sewer lines.
Where's it at?
The blue is the water, the brown would be the sewer lines. If they were located in front of the property, the lines would have been shown across the front of the property. So they would have to be extended to the site to accommodate water and sewer service to homes that would construct there.
That subdivision up there north of the property.
That's Stone Creek?
Yeah, you come out Murphy Road, take a right, and that's on the left. Then you go down and go to the entrance of Baywood.
To get to this parcel, it has access off of Santa Rosa Road. So this would be the front of the parcel, the 10.3 acre parcel.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? If not, is there a motion?
Okay, well, I was just trying to figure out if Gen X has gotten out there yet either. So I'm not sure because they have no water and sewer, so I'm just trying to figure it out.
I'm
Okay,
not
the
sure
floor
about
is
that
open for-
particular, I'm sorry.
The floor is now open for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, sir.
In the zoning case of 210009, excuse me, yes, I move to approve the zoning request from A1 Agriculture to RR Rural Residential. The request is consistent with the Eastover Land Use Plan, which calls for rural density residential, and find the request is reasonable in the public interest as the district requested is in harmony with surrounding existing land uses and zoning.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Keefe, Chairman Evans, Commissioners Booth and Stewart. Voting in opposition, Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move to your items of business. Items 4A is the Fayetteville Cumberland Liaison Committee Homeless Collaboration. At your agenda session last Thursday, Commissioner Adams gave a report to the board about the progress between the Fayetteville Cumberland Liaison Committee. Specifically, at the September meeting of the Liaison Committee, there was discussion about the county's collaboration with the city of Fayetteville on the Homeless Day Center. After considerable discussion at last Thursday's meeting, Commissioner Adams made the following motion, and that motion was to collaborate with the city on homelessness through the Homeless Committee Interlocal Agreement. And Commissioner Adams laid out the rationale, and that is that the county is beginning work on a homeless shelter. The city is beginning work on renovation of a homeless day center. Commissioner Adams laid out that at some point there does need to be communication because the projects will need to be meshed and resources will have to be merged. But Commissioner Adams had said that we should do this through the homeless committee that has already been established through the interlocal agreement. The motion did pass. It passed 4-3. Since it was not unanimous, this item is being brought forward for your discussion and deliberation this evening.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Are there any questions or comments to this item? If not, is there... Commissioner
I was just
Bruce.
going to ask him, but I might as well share it with my question in the whole room. Define collaboration with the city. I've been waiting to see what that phrase is.
That's been why I had a rough time. I think as it even went further, I think when she was talking about that homeless committee, it was to be enlarged to two commissioners, two
City
commissioners,
council.
two city council, school board, PW. It's some it was laid out in terms of that.
Yeah.
So what that looks like is in that committee. They will discuss that, because I think that's why we put all of them together, and they will bring it back to this board, whatever happens. Nothing happens without them bringing it back to this board. I do believe there's, as I always said, there's only a finite amount of money wherever it is, and that we need to maximize whatever it is being done. I do believe also that we've already started down the road with the shelter. We ought to continue down that road and complete that item as a Cumberland County item. And that the city has started with their day center. I think they're at just the point of construction, not much more than that, even though they had some things on the inside, as Commissioner Stewart and I were there. The reason I say let them finish that, because we didn't have any input into the design or any of that, and that the city's doing that. But after those two projects are done, in order to be able to at least address this issue, there has to be some communication. And I think even, and that committee may grow to some of the other surrounding communities like Hope Mills or whatever, because whatever happens, it's going to push out and it's going to impact all of us in this particular county.
Well, if you allow me to say at this time, or Commissioner Stewart, do you have something that you would like to say at this time? I saw you over making a move there.
Yes, it was my understanding that when we voted, there were 2 votes, and we voted about the homeless committee. That was the 2 chairs for the commissioners and 2 seats for the county, for the city. I thought that's what we're voting on. The latest one, the one that's up for discussion, it sounds like we're voting concerning what the committee talks about. And I'm sure I'm not clear on that, but it sounds like we're voting about what the committee is talking about. And I don't think that that's our place to talk about what they're discussing with the city. It was the way that it read on the agenda was, do we have an appetite to assist the city in their day center? That's what the motion read.
That wasn't my motion.
No, that's what the motion read, and so that's why I wanted you to be clear about what your motion was, and because I wasn't clear on what your motion was, then I voted against it, because I wasn't clear.
But we only took, and clearly I think everybody might have been in conjunction of the homeless thing, but there was only one motion made. I don't think it was 2 motions made. It was all encompassed in one. That's why it was a 4-3. Well, it came to 3-3. Mr. Booth didn't get excused, so it ended up being 4-3. But it's not to talk about what the committee is. One, to establish the committee, and then to be able to say that that committee would collaborate with the city as it moves forward with homeless issues in this community.
And I don't have a button. Commissioner Stewart, and then Commissioner Bruce.
Well, that's why I said that there was already a motion, because that first motion about the committees was unanimous.
We didn't have a motion.
We did, and it was unanimous.
Okay.
And then the second one was 4-1, and that was because I wasn't clear on what the motion was.
4-3.
Yes.
Yes.
So, because that motion read do we have an appetite to assist the city with the day center, is what it read. That's not what you said.
That's right, and that's not the
That's not what you
motion that I
said.
made. I wasn't there. I was not in terms of ever saying we should assist in the day center.
Okay.
Because the conversation I had was, they finish the day center, we do the shelter. And that they don't mesh. That doesn't mesh. That's two separate items that
Correct.
each one would finish, but that we would collaborate through the homeless committee to go forward with homeless issues.
The motion was just so broad that's why I wanted you to be very direct. So it was too broad.
Well, mine was, and I think we had the conversation that the shelter and the day center move on their own. And that we're not looking for any collaboration on the shelter. And we're not looking to give any collaboration on the day center at this point in time as they build it. Who knows down the road. But that the committee would be able to discuss and bring back to this board those things.
Commissioner Booth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The longest journey begins with the first step. I've been looking forward, we've had committee meetings, and we've met informally at lunch meetings, while we've been at other functions with the city that we've both been at. We've tried to talk about it, we've all agreed that we gotta have that first win. You know, we're not gonna do MetroVisions. We're not gonna suddenly merge, county and city government or anything, but in order for us all to be on the same sheet, we're gonna have to agree on something somewhere. If this motion, instead of just asking, will we move that we work together on homelessness, who's gonna stand up and say, nope, I'm against homelessness? See, that's what I'm saying. So if we can't get together on this,
We never will.
next we're gonna vote against world peace.
Well,
So,
Well, you know what, and if you allow me at this point to say this, I object to this motion. For one thing, because the discussion has been for a long time in working with the city and to provide some type of togetherness in the homeless situation. And when it first started out, we still had difficulty with trying to decide what part they would play in it. It was all left up to the county. And I think at this point now, that discussion is almost null and void. If there's going to be some assistance between the city and county after the projects are completed, then I don't see a problem with it. But I think that each of us need to go our own separate ways and do what we said that we were going to do, instead of just kicking the can down the street and coming back and forth about what we're going to do with the city. Apparently, the city at that time and at this time don't need our assistance because it was proven by them going on with the resource center. And that's why we decided to go on with the homeless center. So any collaboration, I just don't see it happening. Commissioner Adams.
Well, whenever you finish the discussion, I got a motion.
Oh, okay.
I would move that the city continue on with the day center, that the county continue on with the shelter on their own, and that, but I do believe, and the motion would be that the homeless committee still meet and move forward on collaboration with the homeless issue.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Voting in favor, Commissioners Lancaster, Council Keefe, Commissioners Adams, Booth, and Stewart. Voting in opposition, Chairman Evans.
Thank you, board. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Our final item of business is consideration of Crown Complex multipurpose market and financial feasibility study next steps.
Mr. Chairman, I think I was the no vote on that, and I've gathered some more information, talked to the county manager and the finance, and I don't have a problem. I should have put it back on the consent agenda, so I
We would have appreciated it, sir.
If anybody wants to make a motion, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I forgot it was down there.
Yes,
But I did
Commissioner
talk to
Keefe.
them, so.
Commissioner Adams, thank you for that. I do appreciate it because this is a pretty exciting time. I would like to ask the board to consider allowing the county manager to release the RFP for the owner's representative instead of waiting for another 60 days or 30 days as it comes, because that would just further delay the process. So if I could add to allow the county manager to release the RFP also.
Is that in form of a motion?
It is.
And I'll second that.
Second.
Any comments?
We haven't voted together tonight.
No, I went with you, and I don't have a problem with that. And I know that staff will get the financials in and then do that, because I know you don't want to come to that meeting, but those financials and everything would come in to be able to do that.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
That is unanimous.
I'm a team
Thank
player.
you.
I'm a team player.
Thank you,
I do
board.
what I do.
That brings us to the board's nominations.
Thank you, Madam Manager. We have 6 vacancies for the joint Fort Bragg and Cumberland County Food Policy Council.
Mr. Chairman, you know, this is the one that our student, Mr. Toon, just talked about this first in the nation. Isn't that what you said, Mr. Toon? All right, first in the nation. So the nominations of the member representing local higher education position, get all this down, Mr. Toon. Dr. Dana Kobelish at Methodist University. The member who works in the field of healthcare, public health, food insecurity, food access, or child and adult care position, Sheila Crouch, K-O-R-C-H, at Carolina Collaborative Community Care. Member who does not work in local government or health agencies position, Veronica, y'all just got me be everything, Feliciano at Fayetteville State University. The member representing Fort Bragg Schools, Stephanie White, with Mental Health, Military, and Family Life Council. And members who work in local government, those are 2 positions, Mayor Pro Tem Kiwana McCrae of the town of Hope Mills, and Natasha Randall. It says Women Health Research, but that was supposed to be a government. I guess that's local government. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. Our next will be Cumberland County Home and Health Care Block Grant Committee, 7 vacancies.
And Mr. Chairman, there are 7 vacancies, so I ain't gonna call it the older consumer.
Oh, wait a minute.
That's what's on the paper. I didn't put it there.
Wait
We
a
need to
minute.
change this name of this category. I'm gonna just tell you that, because y'all not gonna get me in trouble. Dolores D. Boyer, Willie Wright, and Stephen McDonald. The civic representative category, Benny Bradley, and the aging services provider category, Deborah Kinney, Lisa Hughes, and Kendra Haywood. Ooh, I'll try that.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice Chair. Now we're down to your Library Board of Trustees, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to, for the appointment of Irene Grams, Joseph Bart Fisher, and Ariel Matthews to the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Fantastic. Fantastic. At this time, we have our Fayetteville Cumberland Youth Council members. Would like to ask for you to come back up and tell us what you learned or any other comments that you have regarding to your Cumberland County Board of Commissioners.
Well, first, we'd like to thank you all for inviting us to come out tonight. I know for myself, but later, in meetings, we talk about council meetings, but the first picture that comes to mind is city council members. And tonight, I have learned that you guys, the Cumberland County, do so much for my community. I'm a Cumberland County resident, so I see so many lots that I have passed by, driven by, and seen. I think that it's so important that our youth in our community to come out and visit you all and learn so much more that you learn in our community right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair.
I would like to say basically the same thing, but in a different sense, because last time I did come here once before, and it was about the zoning, and I was very intrigued with, like James said, how I've drove by and I've seen these places, and how I can learn about what R40 means and A1 means, and things like that can carry with me. So I just want to thank you again. Thank you.
And we want to thank you for taking the time out and joining us tonight. We're very appreciative. And one
Thank you,
day I
sir.
look forward to seeing you sitting up here doing the same thing. Thank you again.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Yeah, better.
Better.
Yes, better. Thank you, Commissioner Key. Madam Manager, is there a closed session tonight?
No closed
Oh, Lord
session.
have mercy.
I move we adjourn. You ready
Is
for
there a
motion?
second?
Second of that.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, Board of Commissioners, for this meeting.